Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to take a look at this MG34DT from Sanyo, all the way from 1983. So it's exactly 40 years old this year. And what I love about this particular one is it's kind of really on the cusp of technology and forefront of ideas, I guess, if you like. If you imagine 1983, you've got David Bowie on the radio, you've got Toto, and life is good. You know, personal stereo's been out for a few years by now, and the race was on to have them more portable, nice build quality, lots of extra features and all that sort of stuff. But imagine if you only wanted a portable light unit and perhaps didn't listen to the radio very often. Why would you want to have perhaps carry the extra circuitry on board and the extra levers and dials and stuff like that, just adding size and weight and complexity to the whole thing? And conversely, maybe sometimes you just wanted to listen to the radio and didn't want to carry a bunch of tapes around with you all the time. So what Sanyo did with the MG34DT was kind of say, well, okay, we're going to build something that's nice and high quality, and it's kind of hopefully built to last, really. I mean, it's got, you know, lovely build quality, it's nice and solid, it's rugged, but also it's got lots of features for a decent tape sound, but also allows you to listen to the radio if you like, but you don't have to carry the circuitry around with you should you not wish to. So how did they get around that? Well, basically, I'll just open this up now to show you. We've got a lovely little set here, and this is pretty much complete and original. So I'll just start with the instructions here, and you'll see that from the get-go, the first thing you see is the personal stereo itself, but then you see this rather quirky thing here, and this is a radio pack. Now, this was done with other makers as well. For example, Toshiba did a version as well. And basically what it is the whole radio circuitry, instead of being inside the actual stereo, it's inside a cassette that you slot into the tape player, and then you play the radio as if you're playing a cassette. So we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. But yep, it's got lots of features really. I mean, it's got Dolby on off, so you can switch that independently with its own LED status light. You've got Type 1, and it'll also play chrome and metal tapes as well. And it's just a lovely thing. So I'll show you more now, and here's the original cardboard covering protection for it. So inside, actually we'll come to the main unit in a moment, but first I just want to show you these headphones. Now these particular headphones, they just need some new foams now, but they're mega rare, I have to say, and they're the ones that come with the unit itself. There's a little belt clip or a little shirt clip or whatever you want on the side there, and lovely little volume control built into that bar there. Very rare Sanyo headphones, and they're the ones that are actually pictured just on the front screen there on the photograph, so you can see those. But it also came with a lanyard, so you could actually carry it around your neck if you wanted to, instead of on the belt clip. And that one is, in this particular example, is still new and sealed in its bag. Also brand new and sealed and taped in its bag is the belt clip that you can see there. So this is a brand new unit that's never actually been used as far as I know. And the unit itself comes as a lovely little pack here with the radio pack and with a nice little case. Now I'll leave that one be, because today we're actually going to look at a different example, because we've now got two of these, and I think it'd be nice to refresh the other one, get some new belts on it and show you how to change those belts. And yeah, hopefully we'll give it a new lease of life. So I'm just going to pack this back in the box now, and we'll take a look at the other unit and see if it works, and if not, we'll replace the belt. So here's the unit we're going to work on today then, and you can see it's got the most glorious case with it, just to protect the main chassis as it were. And you can see this one literally is also like new. I mean, it's just beautiful. Sanyo Electric Co Limited, made in Japan. Now, normally the actual belt clip would go through the hole just there. So when you're actually using it, that's the idea, is that would lock through there. And there's your lanyard clip points as well, should you wish to attach those to the hooks. So we'll just move this out of the case, and you can see it's got a beautiful blue kind of velour or velvety kind of inside as well. Lovely. So there's your case with just the two pop studs and access for the belt clip, the control panel, and indeed the DC jack on there. So you could leave that on all the time should you wish. And the main unit is here. So here we go then. So anti-rolling mechanism, you can see it's got the Dolby on there, which will be Dolby B, and that's activated by this little red switch here, and indeed Dolby noise reduction LED lamp there as well. Single phones, select a switch for tape and radio. You've also got separate left and right volume controls. Now you could use those for balance, and indeed that's kind of what they are for. But interesting, I had a comment from one of my partially deaf viewers recently who said he loves the idea of these ones because with his unit he uses it for boosting the volume to his poor ear without having to raise the volume to ridiculous levels and damaging his other ear, which is what you'd have to do with a single volume pot. So also it allows you just to get a balance in your own head rather than just, if you like, using it for an output, if you like, for different speaker placements and stuff like that. So it's quite nice to have. Also though, you've got normal and metal stroke chrome tape, so there's a regular, there's a low bias and a high bias playback circuit on there as well, and you can see the metal tape, of course, because why would you have a feature in the 1980s and not tell everyone about it? So that's on there, and you can see the features in terms of transport controls. You've got your play, stop, fast forward and rewind, and DC 3 volts, and it's fairly common for the time with Sanyos, they are positive pin 3 volts just there. And you can see it's a 3 volt batteries as well, so 2 AA batteries would go into there, and there's your belt clip. And then you've got some interesting little switches on the side here, and they will become more apparent in a second. So I'll just show you the bottom as well while we're here. So we've got the MG34DT, and it just tells you about the registered trademark for Dolby and that kind of thing just on there. Rightio then, so here we go. What makes this so interesting is that the cassette is not a cassette at all. It's actually a radio pack, or what they call a tuner pack, and this contains all of the circuitry for the radio, and as you can see it's basically a cassette tape. So if I just hold that up to the camera, it looks to all intents and purposes just like a tape. There is no actual tape in here of course, but it is essentially a cassette size with a couple of different features. So first of all, you've got a tuning dial on the top, and as you turn that, so it moves the indicator needle of course, and then you've also got your AM FM switch on the side there, and a stereo and mono switch on the side also. Now you'll see the little pins there, you've got 6 contact pins, and they interface with the ribbon at the back, and you'll see those 6 contacts on the ribbon contact. And then when you want to play a cassette tape, you would literally just plug your tape in as per normal, and away you go. And if you wanted to play the radio, you'd put the radio in like so. And then to do that, of course, you've got your switches that poke through the holes on the side, and then you've also got the hole for your tuner on there as well, so you can activate it and see the gradients through the screen. You can see that moving just nicely. So there we go. So that's how it basically works. Now I think what we ought to do perhaps is give it a quick test to make sure it does work before we go ahead and change the belts. I've got some belts here from Deck Tech, so we'll get those on today. It's a very complicated job, to be fair. It's not one of the easiest ones at all, and that's kind of why I wanted to give you a bit of an introduction to the model, just to show you what it's all about and what it does. Because there are, well, these are very rare, quite frankly. They don't come up for sale very often, certainly not in very good condition, and they'll generally not be working, and of course changing the belts really is somewhat of a job on these, so it's not for the faint-hearted, but we'll have a go today, see how we get on. But first of all, like I say, let's give it a quick test, see what actually works and what doesn't. So I'm just going to bring in my little JSX37 speakers just to see if this works okay, and we'll get the batteries in. And yeah, you can see the battery cover clips in nicely. Headphone out, volume to minimum, just in case we get any sudden bursts of noise. Right, okay, so we'll go for radio, being as though that's in. So select radio on the top. Now we press play as if it was a cassette, and I can see, there we go, I can see that the radio is working, or I can hear that it's working. And I'm just going to turn the lights out because I know that these lights interfere with FM. There we go. So let's see if we can actually get a signal now. And I'll hold these speakers up because of course they act as the aerial anyway.
Is no longer affordable in the face of higher interest rates. Liberal Democrat Councillor Federica Smith-Roberts is
Okay. Well, you can see that the FM and I'll just turn it back down. You can see that the FM and the FM stereo lights, the tuning lights, are all okay. So that's all we needed to know. I was pretty sure that the radio pack itself worked anyway, so we'll just get the lights back on and we'll look at the tape mech. So reject the tuner cassette, as it were, tuner pack, and we'll just put a tape in now and switch back over to tape and press play. Okay, I think that's a little bit slow, and rewind doesn't work at all. Fast forward works to a degree. Okay, well, let's try another tape. Oh dear. Okay, so we've got a really wobbly belt there, and again I'll just try and, yeah, rewind's gone, fast forwards limping and thinking about it. So basically then we're gonna have to change both of the belts. Basically, as I say, the first belt is the main drive belt, and that will that's giving us that wow and flutter and all that sort of stuff. The second belt is really more for the fast forward and rewind. It's like a transport belt. So yeah, they kind of work, yeah, they sort of work all right when there's no load on there, but as soon as you put a load on it by putting a cassette in there, the whole thing just yeah, turns to apples, and that's the end of that. So okay, then we know what we need to do now, so let's get it open, see what we're up against. And very quickly, I suppose we ought to just check that the DC works, hadn't we? So 3 volts DC, and I'm using my multi-voltage adapter here, which I did a video on recently. If you haven't checked that out, please do. It's quite a useful little multi-voltage dual polarity adapter there, so it's quite handy for just testing stuff like these on the bench. And yep, that works. That's all I wanted to know, just to make sure that there was no obvious kind of loose power connection either, because we don't want to be taking it apart, putting it back together, and then realising there was something else we should have done whilst we were in there. So let's move these speakers away, lose the tape, and make a start. And the first thing we want to do is just remove the belt clip. Now that's designed, of course, for a coin. Couple of turns with a coin if you're out and about, and that's all you need to remove that. The screw's held on by a E-clip, as you can see there, so there's no danger of that coming out. And there we go then. Right, let's lose these batteries. And start removing the rear case, and there's 4 screws. And all 4 screws there are the same, and the back cover is away as easy as that. So that's all we've got to start with. It's just the battery ribbon attached there and your 4 little screws. So that's the easy bit. Okay, now we come to the actual belt itself. We can start to see now This belt is pretty loose. You can see it's lost a lot of its give, and it's very easy for that tiny little brass pulley just to spin up and forget to take this with it. So yeah, and you can see also the little adjuster for the tape speed. You might just see the potentiometer, oh sorry, the variable resistor just there for that. And there is the ribbon cable for, do you remember I said about the contacts for the radio pack? So if we look inside, you can see that ribbon, that ribbon in the back, that goldy orange colour with the 6 contacts. That comes through to here. Now I made the mistake years ago of trying to desolder those when I was so-called repairing one of these, and it went horribly wrong, and these contacts are so frail, they just burnt back straight away, and that was basically the end of that. I kind of killed the unit. So lesson learned is don't ever desolder this side, always desolder from the transport button side, and that will make for a much happier place. And the first thing you want to do at this stage anyway really is take a photo or two. And I generally take a kind of like a gross and anatomical version, as it were, an overview of all of the cable layouts, and then maybe the quadrants, just for a closer view so you can zoom in if there's an issue with where the cables are going. Some of these are particularly tiny, and they're actually on the probably on the edge of what I can see comfortably, to be fair. So it's always worth just making sure you've got the cable routings and everything else exactly where you need them to be. I may even raise that now onto a little bit of foam so you can see that more readily. Okay, so the first thing I think we want to do is try and peel away this shield. You can see it's never been done before, it's brand new. And I may actually even desolder that. We'll also get these bits of tape away, because we're going to need to desolder various cables along the way here as well. So I'm just going to get these bits of tape away, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so there's a tiny little screw now just next to what I think, yeah, it's the main amp chip there. There's your Dolby chip. So I'm just going to get rid of this tiny little screw. And there is a tiny washer as well. I'm just going to collect that. I mean, this thing really is, as I say, it's at the limit of where I would like to be comfortably with regard to repairs. This is about as fiddly as I get, he says as he's trying to put the washer back on that screw. There we go. Yeah, so you can see the size for comparison. That is actually the screw with the washer on it. And yeah, I'm a bit old school, and that's about as small as I want it to be. Right, okay, so you'll see now that the actual, in theory, the circuit board is kind of loose. Now it is retained, just be careful, by the headphone jack, which protrudes through the case a little bit. But even then, it won't really want to come away because you're held by these cables coming across. So what you want to do is just mark these up. We've got, for a start, we've got the red one just there. There is a blue one, and I think the black one comes away as well. So let's make a start on those three, the black, the red and the blue, and see what that gives us. Oh, and also possibly some over this side, but we'll come back to that in a second. And so what we're going to find is there are blue and red to come off of this end. Then there is the black and the yellow to come off of this end. Plus there's also the orange, blue and red to come off this end. Most of them are marked, so you should be able to put them back in the right place eventually. I'm just going to get these away now. So there's orange, blue and red, like so. And then this side we've got the blue and the red. It's important as to why you take photos beforehand. And this side we've got the black and the yellow. There we go. I think we may even have to desolder the head cables as well, and they are particularly tiny. You'll see those kind of nestled in between the chips, especially the white and the red there, look. So yeah, so far, as I say, we've got 3 off from this side. We've got the two from this side, and also the black and the yellow from the other side. And then we should be almost out. But as I say, I think now we've got to unpick the head cable. Also at this juncture, I forgot to say, I normally put a little bit of masking tape or painter's tape, something low tack, just on the side, just to pin the cables to the edge without doing any damage. Otherwise you find that you'll probably end up fatiguing the joints and pulling something off that doesn't need to. So yeah, so we've got the two, we've got the red and blue there, we've got the battery terminals off, we've got these 3 off in that corner. So all that remains is the very fragile and delicate work of desoldering the head now. Well, I've never found a way of doing this without desoldering the head. As I say, very tiny work. It's microscope work really, to be honest. How they managed back in the day, I don't know. Perhaps if you used to repair these once upon a time, let me know how you got on, because fair play to you guys for doing this day in, day out. Although I suppose back in the day it didn't need doing because the belts were still fairly new. But anyway, here we go. So typical kind of Sanyo board here. Got the volume pot, you've got your Dolby switch here, your master function switch, your headphone socket just there, an assortment of delightful looking resistors and electrolytics, a few transistors across there, and your adjustable potentiometer there for your tape speed. So yeah, and there's your leaf switch, all good. Little power switch, just power socket just on that side. But yeah, so here we go. So now we can actually see what's going on. I'm going to be super careful not to strain this little ribbon cable, which is for the tape, for the radio I should say. So yeah, here we go then. So there's your some of the cables out and out of that side, and the head, as I say, we can kind of just tuck that away. Now if it was a case of just changing the belt, and you can see that it's gone, it's all wibbly wobbly and you know, spinning fairly independently. Just make sure that you remember which way it goes though, because there is a crossover on this one, and it's important to note that the belt is twisted so that the top part, or the upper part I should say here, crosses down like so. So there we go. But we don't want to stop there. We want to remove the actual mechanism because we want to replace the other belt as well. So we've got 3 screws to get out, and these are 2 in the corners These are the two black screws in the corner. And then the silver one over here. And don't forget to put those back in, because before now I've even put the mech back in, put the board in, resoldered everything back up, put the back case on, looked up and saw 3 little screws sat on the side and thinking, oh no, I know what they're for, and had to take the whole thing apart and do it again. So do be careful. Right, okay, as I say, this is a very methodical little job. Now another thing now is we need to remove the actual mechanism, but you would think that you'd actually have to press the play button in and all that sort of stuff to try and give you clearance, and actually you have to pull away instead from the back, just tease it through, because before now, until you know, it's one of those things, when you know, but if you don't know, you end up sort of pulling the whole thing out and it doesn't appear to want to come out, and unless you actually just peel it away gently like that, you will find, I think it's just a bit caught on some, yeah, just a bit caught on some glue in the corner. I've even before now pulled these pulleys off and had little washers and pulleys everywhere, purely just because it gets trapped inside the casing. So just remember to pull it, sort of push the mech towards the transport buttons to peel the back away, and then you can lift it out like so. Anyways, that's the chassis, as it were, with the board. So we're going to put that all just to one side for a minute, because now we have the mechanism itself. Because what we want to do now, well, A, it allows us to clean everything nicely. We can get in here and clean the pinch roller and the head, which looks a little bit grubby as well, and yeah, and the capstan, we can clean all that. But the main thing is there's another belt, and I don't know if you'll see it, but just inside there, and this is where the fun starts, because you've got to watch now, and I might start going quiet on you, so I do apologise in advance if that's the case, because I have to really start concentrating in a minute. And I had a chap write to me recently. He said, oh, he's changed the belt in his MG34 and it's still not right, you know, any ideas? And I said, well, perhaps you might want to start thinking about changing the other belt, because quite often that one buried down in there is often overlooked, and even if it's not overlooked, it's a devil of a job to replace. So we're going to go and very carefully do that now. So first thing we want to do, well, first thing I'm going to do, is pull off the original belt. You can see it's deformed, it's a bit twisted up, well, just not very nice. It's gone, it's lost its life. It was already too big, deformed. That's why it was wibbly wobbly. So we've got rid of that. That's okay. Right then, here we go. So now I'm going to get the tiny screwdriver bit back out, and you need to remove 3 little black screws here. Okay, 1, 2 and 3, and also it doesn't do any harm to remove this tiny little spring as well. So you'll just, I'll bring that in slightly closer for you, but you've got a screw there, there and there, and there's also a little spring, and when you lift this out, it all kind of hangs on this spring anyway. So if you want to, now can be a chance to remove the spring like so. Okay, and then you don't have to worry about it all kind of being awkward in a minute, because sometimes you're trying to put it back against the spring tension and line these tiny screws up, and it's hard work. So I always try to put that spring back in after. So there's your one. So there's a fair bit of talking in this video. It's a fairly long video for ultimately what is just a personal stereo belt change, but as I say, it's not for the faint-hearted. I've actually had one of these that I made all the mistakes on before, and I've burnt out a ribbon cable, as I say, and I've pulled pulleys off, and I've had gears all over the place. So you do have to be super methodical with all this sort of stuff. But anyway, you can also, actually, just thinking about it, you can see the belt just running on the bottom of the pulley. It's just there on the bottom of the flywheel. But as I say, you can't sort of get to this without doing lots of little jobs. So I'm going to now turn it back over, because the next job we want to do, would you believe, is get a little E-clip off, which is on the capstan just there. There's a tiny little E-clip. Now, it kind of makes matters interesting because, and there goes my little spring, by the way, that's fallen out now, so that's fine. We'll put that back in later. Right, okay, so normally capstans tend to be held in by a little retaining washer that just slides on. On these ones though, it's a little E-clip, which makes it more fun because you've got far more chance of something flying across the room and completely ruining your project. So I'm just going to get a tiny screwdriver now. I'm going to put a dab of grease on it just to try and hold on, and I'm going to get rid of this E-clip, and then we can remove the capstan. Okay, so tiniest little E-clip. There we go. I don't know if you'll even... There she is. Beautiful. Right, so I don't want to lose that. I'm going to put that little beauty just on the towel there. Right, good. Now the E-clip is away, there is also a very small washer as well. I'm just literally just going to pick that out if I can. I don't know if you'll even see that, it's so almost microscopic. So there's your little washer that goes with the E-clip. Okay, and that allows the flywheel to kind of come away a little bit. We now need to pull, so the belt, there we go. So there's your capstan and the flywheel, and you might just see a little groove. Can you just see that little groove halfway down the capstan? And that's where the E-clip goes in to retain it. Okay, so this is a nice opportunity just to inspect everything and give it a decent clean if we wanted to. Right, well, there's the belt. Only problem with that, of course, is we've still got to get this out. So next job, we've got to now remove this pulley, which requires this tiny little... I was lucky, landed on my arm. There we go. There's your tiny little washer there. Now, in fact, tiny little dots just to show which was the face up. And I want to remove that one. Okay, so there's a little pulley there, and there is actually a detail on the bottom that locks in to the gears below, and this is where it gets very sketchy now. So I'm going to hold this back together. So now we literally have half the mech in one hand and various loose cogs and assemblies elsewhere. And yeah, I'll take a quick photograph at this point just of what I can see. It's a pretty fearful little thing. So anyway, there's your second belt. So this is the one that was giving us grief with the fast forward as well. Alright, slip in and what have you. So that's it. So there's the two belts off. And as I say, I can see in front of me 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws, 11 screws, the flywheel, a pulley, assorted washers, an E-clip, half of the mech, and yeah, it's all in bits. So now's the time. I think I'm just going to stop and have a bit of a coffee, and then hopefully we can put it all back together and it may just work. Okay, I've just made myself a quick coffee so we can settle in for the reversal of the procedure. Now, I've just had a quick count up and there are 29 loose items that need to be put back together again, and I think 10 solder joints. So, first things first, we'll get these belts on. So I've got some belts here from Deck Tech, and I work with these guys on occasion to develop new kits if there aren't any about anywhere else, so that's always really cool. Now the thing with this one is I think we've got a 45 by 1mm square main sort of motor drive belt, which is this one. At least that's how I measured it up. So I think we're going to be all right with that one, because the original one's obviously got slack and got loose, so that should be good. Right, the only thing is, so we've got a 1.5mm belt for the bottom belt, and I measured around 35.5mm, and they very kindly sent me a 35 and a 36, which is what they have. And overlaying them, I think the 36 is almost exactly right. The only thing is, of course, that was slightly loose and it wasn't working, which is why we're replacing it. So I'm going to go for the 35mm, which was the very slightly smaller one of the two, and we'll go from there. So what I'm going to try and do here now is fit the thick belt over the pulley, like so. But of course that needs to go through and in. We've got to make sure we don't get any grease from the mech as well onto the actual unit. So we also have to carefully, now I'm going to be sort of in my own way a little bit, so apologies. But basically we've got to feed the belt over that pulley, put the capstan through the rebate there, and yeah, try not to get any grease on anything. So just let me go quiet for a moment. So that's kind of how the pulley, that's kind of how it will work. Now we've got to kind of lower it all in. The capstan will go through its gap. We've got to get these super fiddly little screws in. Once you've got one, you can kind of relax a little bit. Now, having tried a couple of methods with putting it all in as a complete sub-assembly, it's not really working that well, to be fair, because you find that it goes on out of square, and it's imperative that all these various cogs and gears all line up. So to that end, what I'm actually doing instead is I've put the belt more or less in the direction it needs to go, and I'm now just going to screw the mech in whilst all the cogs and the gears are all in the correct place, like so. So now we have the assembly with everything wanting to turn okay, and that should, yeah, that should all work okay, hopefully. What I've got to do now, of course, is get the capstan on, and of course it goes on the bottom pulley of this, and I've made sure that the capstan is clear. Okay, I think it's about 10 years later now, by the time I finally got all this back together again. It really is trickier than it looks. I ended up having to take out a couple of extra springs as well, just to allow us to line everything up properly and then screw it down and then respring it. So my advice for future would be to probably take all the springs out and just be done with it. But anyway, here we are, and it would appear that if I press play, it locks in, stop, fast forward, rewind. I think it all works. All the levers, the auto stop and everything else seems to be okay. If I turn the flywheel by hand, you should see the gear turning just there. So that's pretty cool. Right, so I think what I'm going to do now is get the capstan back on. Get that tiny little washer back over there. Like I say, extremely fiddly job. Okay, that's down there. Right, next we get to lose the E-clip, fit the E-clip. So again, oops, so fiddly this job, honestly. See, it's just really is. Okay, so just put a tiny bit of grease on the end of the screwdriver there. Come on. Yeah, so again, this is just going to be one of those jobs that takes about another 10 minutes. If I ever get this E-clip back out and fit it, I'll be back for another. You won't believe how impossibly tiny these parts are. So I'm going to come back in about 10 minutes when this is done, save you getting bored with all this little lot. Well, that E-clip took way longer than I expected, to be honest. It took about 20 minutes. Absolutely joke, really. Fiddly little jobs sometimes. It's quite funny because when you see things that are for sale, like on eBay and places like that, people pay the same price for something they found in the back of a cupboard than they do when someone's spent an entire day working on it. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and clean. I'm cleaning the head there, cleaned the capstan, got the grease off from fitting that E-ring. The only reason I used a bit of grease on there was because I was trying to stop it from flying across the room. I did actually lose the original one. That shot across the room just as I thought it would, never to be seen again, literally. So I fitted another one, which was even harder because it's the same colour as the washer, so it was even harder to see what was going on. But anyway, I'm just going to finish cleaning this pinch roller, and I'll be back momentarily. Okay, next job then is to get this pulley back on, and hopefully we can lock that into position. There we go, and that has a tiny little washer on there like so. Good. Okay, right. Alrighty, so the head's clean, capstan pinch roller's cleaned, mech seems to be working as it's supposed to. We can only hope, I guess. So the next job is to get the drive belt on, which ordinarily is the easy job, and it was actually, there we go. Good. Remembering to cross it the right way. While something's working, we turn the capstan over there and everything else seems to be working, which is great news. I've just actually swapped that belt out for a slightly bigger one. Half the fun of doing demos, as it were, and trial kits and stuff. So that's better. That's a 47.5mm 1mm square. Right, good. So belts are on. Everything appears to be put back together. Now I'm checking my other loose screws around the place to make sure I've not forgotten anything obvious, because this is where you can get into a habit of putting it all back together and realising you've forgotten something silly on the inside. So quick idiot check, it seems to be working. So I'm just going to hook up some power. Let's have a look. Okay, and that seems to work. And fast forward and rewind. Stop. Yeah. Because it's on all the time, because of course we've got permanent 3 volts live to the motor. But in reality, I think what should be happening is the little lever for the leaf switch will actuate the motor when we need it. So obviously when it's in the stop position, it won't normally be getting powered. Only once we press play will it actually engage. So I think everything's done. But anyway, for the next thing to do, I think, is to get it all back in its case and start soldering it back together again. So be super careful now not to damage anything. So we've got to get the mech back in, keep the heads out of the way, and just carefully drop that into there like so, and the mechanism is all lined up. Okay, so next thing we want to do is get these screws back in. So we've got the 2 black screws there and a silver screw in the back corner. So super careful, just making sure that all the cables are where they should be, all the let outs are in the correct place, and of course we've got to drop the headphones through the hole there. That's it, so that's fine, and that all sits nicely. You can see that the holes line up. You just check for all that kind of thing, and I'm just going to press the play. Yeah, looks like all the leaf switch mechanism should be okay. It feels good. So, a tiny little screw and washer. Into the middle of the board. And then all that remains is the job of, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yep, 10 cables to solder back on again. So we'll get the iron on and get this resoldered. So just be systematic about how we do this. Just take your time and hopefully all will be well. So all that remains is for the head cables now to do. Now these are particularly tiny. I mean, they're microscopic. Well, I think I've done it. You'd have laughed if you've seen me, because I literally did that with 2 pairs of glasses on, 1 pair over the top of the other. So yeah, right, there's the shielding for that. And I think I'm actually just going to try it out now. Don't know if this will work this way. Let's see. Fingers crossed. No, hang on. Tape, please be. Oh no. Let's put 3 volts through the actual mechanism. Let's just see what's what. Looks like it's completely dead at the moment. Right, okay. Okay, well I put it all back together and it was totally dead. I tried to inject 3 volts directly onto the motor, there was nothing. Also onto the battery contacts, there was nothing. So it would appear as though I actually didn't put the leaf switch in the right position after all. So I've had to literally take everything back out, desolder everything, reset the little cam that operates the leaf switch, put it back in, solder it all back up, and let's hope for the best. So if we press play now, there we go, it's running. But the play is smooth, so I think I'm going to take that as a bit of a win, to be honest. Yeah. Right, I think I'm just going to put the back on. It's been a bit of a long day one way or another, this one. Put the tape back down. Hold all these cables back where they came from. And get the back cover on. And we'll have a bit of a reveal. Right, I've just bought some little speakers out for a minute and we'll just give it a quick check to see if it works. So play. Okay, it's a little bit slow, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm just going to turn it over now because I think what we'll do is test the speed. So we'll just change that via this little potentiometer just here. Okay, that's about right. Okie dokie, good. Okay, I've just tweaked the tape speed a little bit, so we'll just try it one more time. And the Dolby. Good. Okay, we just got to the end of the tape there, but we can see that the Dolby and the Chrome tape switching works well. You can hear the EQ differences on that, so that's cool. And also fast forwarding is nice. But it's playing really well. Good. Right, we'll give it a bit of a wipe, have a tidy up, and just take one final look. So here it is then, the Sanyo MG34DT cassette player come radio. It's been a labour of love, I don't mind telling you. It's taken way longer than I thought it might have done. It all started out with the best intentions, but of course once you get to the innermost belt, there were cogs, pulleys, springs, cams, just jumping out across the room trying to make a bid for freedom. So it's been a case of slowly but surely changing one thing, altering the position of something else, and trying to get it all back together again. I've spared you most of it, to be honest, because it was pretty painful both to do and painful for you to watch if you had to, I guess. Anyway, good news is finally back together. Perseverance has won out. So we'll just check now actually and press play, and we can see that that's turning lovely. Fast forward and rewind. Marvellous. So I think all that remains is to get a tape in there and see whether or not it actually works. Actually, to that end, first things first, remind myself it's not an auto reverse, so I'll put it in the right way. And I'm going to turn on a little boombox. I've just got this hooked up at the moment through some external speakers. So let me just go and turn that on. We never meant fall in love this way. Okay, good. So there's your tape. That's working nicely. But now then, let's try this radio. And excuse the hum in the background. This boombox is sat over there, sort of humming away quite nicely. So we're going to turn this now over to radio, and I'm hoping we might get some sort of signal. So to that end, I'm going to just turn the lights off. So I'm going to see if we can actually get some radio going. I've just realised I probably can't show much of that because of copyright reasons.
We're going to be in Liverpool at the M&S Bank Arena Saturday the 28th of October. I actually don't remember the last time I had a night out in Liverpool. Realised that. But there is only one choice for a takeaway. What do you pick? Is it a Thai? Is it an Indian? A Chinese?
There we go. So I'm just going to put the lights back on and turn the boombox off a minute. There we go, that's got rid of the background noise. Basically, yeah, I was just running this through a Sharp GF555 just for a bit of fun really, and we're a bit close to the back of it at the moment, so it's a bit noisy. But suffice it to say, the radio works lovely. Now obviously, normally it works better outside, and of course the headphones normally act as the aerial, so we didn't have any sort of elevation or aerial from the actual headphones today just to try that out. But we could see the radio works, you could see how it would operate. And yeah, it's a pretty cool little thing really. So you just take your tape out, or should I say your radio cassette, literally, and then put your other tape in, and then away you'd go with that one. So that's how that would work. But anyway, there we go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. There is the Sanyo MG34DT. Bit of fun, something a bit interesting. It's a beautiful unit, really fairly compact I guess for its time. It's got Dolby, it's got metal tape facility, it's got the idea or option to use just a cassette or indeed the radio. Pretty cool little thing really, so well worth a little look. It was an absolute pain to get it fixed, I must admit. One of the hardest I've done in quite a while, but yeah, I think worth it. We've saved it, haven't we? So that's great. We can keep using that now and keep enjoying it. So if you do like your Walkmans or your boomboxes, vintage games, 8-tracks, all kind of old stuff, then do please subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notifications bell for updates, because I'll be back with some more really cool stuff real soon. But in the meantime, stay safe, and thank you very much for watching. All the best for now. Bye bye.